Chapter 1 Return to 1908. I didn't expect that I'm still alive. Looking at the unfamiliar ceiling, Yan Guang smiled bitterly. Yan Guang didn't know whether his luck was good or bad. Not to mention being drowned in his previous life due to bad luck, he was almost drowned again when he was reincarnated into the owner of his current body. However, it is estimated that the owner of this body is not very lucky. He came to the United States on a ship and it sank due to a storm. However, if not, it is probably not his turn to be reincarnated into his body. At that time, I was floating alone on the sea holding a wooden board, and I really thought I was going to be reincarnated again. Just as Yan Guang was lying on the hospital bed, shaking his head and smiling bitterly, there was a knock on the door of the ward. "Come in." Speaking in broken English, a white doctor and nurse walked in outside the door. The doctor checked it and nodded. "There is no problem with your body anymore. Congratulations." Yan Guang braced himself and smiled bitterly. "Yeah, but my wallet is half empty." A smile appeared on the doctor's face. "You should thank God for his mercy, Yan. You are the only one in that boatload of people who was released back to the world." "That's because heaven doesn't accept yellow people," Yan Guang said half-jokingly. "Perhaps we really have to thank God. Although we don't know what the original owner of this body came to the United States for, at least he had all the documents on him. Therefore, Yan Guang was not regarded as a stowaway after he was rescued, but was sent to the hospital for treatment. After completing the discharge procedures, Yan Guang walked out of the hospital neatly dressed in the clothes the doctor bought for him from outside. The only things he carries with him now are the documents proving his identity and the half-deflated money bag. Yan Guang, who is troubled by the problem of eating, is not even in the mood to see the scenery around him that he could only see in nostalgic movies in the past. The deflated money bag brought a deep sense of crisis to Yan Guang, because he had no idea what the original owner of his body was doing here, let alone what he planned to make a living after arriving in the United States. He only knows that if he doesn't think of a way, the contents of his wallet may not be able to support him for much longer. But what can he do in this world? The teachers in school in his previous life did not teach him how to survive in the United States in the early 20th century. Yes, the United States at the beginning of the 20th century, to be precise, it was January 1908. He learned all this from the doctors and nurses in the hospital, and his current location was the first choice for Chinese people coming to the United States, San Francisco, also known as San Francisco. With a rudimentary identity certificate, poor English, and a relatively strong body, if Yan Guang couldn't think of a solution before his wallet was completely depleted, Yan Guang could only consider whether to go to Chinatown to beg for food or work as a coolie. But before that, Yan Guang decided to think of a solution first. At least find a place to stay, and then have something to eat. Considering the problem of his wallet, Yan Guang chose a hotel that was a bit small but looked pretty good. Although it was in San Francisco, which has the largest Chinese population in the United States, the white boss standing at the front desk was stunned when he saw a yellow man like Yan Guang walk in. He had never seen such a tall yellow man before. "Please give me a single room. It's cheap." Yan Guang smiled bitterly after thinking about his wallet. "Understood." The boss nodded and gave Yan Guang a key after he filled out the registration form. "Room 302. Please don't worry. Our charges here are not very expensive, but the service is definitely very good." Having said this, the foreman showed a smile that all men understand. "Excuse me, do you need any special night service?" It seems that Yan Guang is not despised just because he is of yellow race. A little excited, but thinking about his wallet, Yan Guang still shook his head. "No need." Grabbing the key, Yan Guang thanked him and walked towards the stairs. What should I do next? Lying on his back on the bed, looking at the unfamiliar ceiling again, Yan Guang didn't know what he could do. Coolie. Thinking about my tall height of over 1.8 meters, if I work as a coolie, I might be able to earn $2. In fact, the only way out that Yan Guang can think of for himself is to work as a coolie. Although he did learn a lot in his previous life, he has already given it back to the teacher after so many years. Not to mention that in this world, there is probably no craft that is useful for people with high education. Sorrow. At this time, Yan Guang felt that it would be nice if he had a cigarette at hand, even though he didn't know how to smoke. Would you like to go to Chinatown and have a look? We are all Chinese. Maybe we can take care of each other, but I can't read traditional Chinese characters. Although I can read it, if I accidentally write simplified characters, those old Chinese won't tear me apart, right? Thinking of the legend that the old Chinese abroad are conservative, it's scary if they see the simplified characters I wrote. Although simplified Chinese characters were developed during the Republic of China, it is still in the late Qing dynasty, and the Republic of China was at least 20 years later. Forget it. Just take it one step at a time. The money you have can still be used for a while. If there is really no other way, we can only look at where there is a shortage of coolies. In the next few days, Yan Guang kept running around, hoping to find a suitable job. However, I don't know if it was due to a bad year, but no one was willing to accept Yan Guang. Is it really the case that I am going to die? Just when Yan Guang was sitting in the lobby of the hotel dejected, Jim, the owner of the hotel, called him. Yan, come here and help me. After a few days of contact, although Yan Guang and the white boss were not friends, they were finally familiar with each other, so he walked over after hearing that Jim was looking for him. What's up? You're compatriots, but they don't seem to understand English, so I would like to ask you to register for me. Jim pointed to a Chinese couple next to the front desk. Learn. He took the registration form and pen from Jim, and after chatting with the Chinese couple for a few words, he began to fill in the registration form. However, when filling in, Yan Guang always felt that the pen was a little awkward, so he said to Jim, Jim, do you have a ballpoint pen? I remember that Yan Guang's favorite thing to use was a ballpoint pen when he was in school, because ballpoint pens do not have to be filled with ink every day like fountain pens, and if used carelessly, they can cause various accidents. When he was in elementary school, because the teacher did not allow the use of ballpoint pens, Yan Guang even thought that the teacher and the pen factory were in the same group. Ballpoint pen? What is a ballpoint pen? Jim, who was drinking water at the side, asked strangely. The pen that was still filling in the form stopped. Don't you know about ballpoint pens? Yan Guang looked at Jim with wide eyes. Jim shrugged. I don't know what high-end product you are talking about. Anyway, I have never heard of such a thing as a ballpoint pen. There are no ballpoint pens yet. Unable to stop the smile on his face, Yan Guang rushed out of the hotel after quickly filling out the form. After running to the street, Yan Guang rushed toward the store. If there is no ballpoint pen yet, can I register it as a patent and sell it to make money? After learning from the store that there were only pens and pencils, but indeed no ballpoint pens, Yan Guang returned to the hotel with a secretive smile. Thanks, Jim. Yan Guang patted Jim's shoulder hard, and without saying why, Yan Guang ran back to his room, leaving Jim staring at him blankly at the front desk. That guy was downcast a few days ago. What happened today? Jim shook his head and continued to receive the next pair of guests. The next day, Yan Guang came back from buying a bunch of things, which made Jim think he was going to do experiments in the room. Jim, how about coming here and trying this pen? On the fourth day, Yan Guang walked up to Jim holding a round metal tube. This metal tube looks very crude, and it is 20 centimeters long and as wide as 2 pens. It looks very strange. What is this? Jim asked curiously after taking the metal pipe. Yan Guang rubbed his hands with a smile on his face. This is my new invention. Please try it first to see if it works. The question is how to use it. It works just like an ordinary pen. Just give it a try first, he said and placed a piece of paper in front of Jim. After hesitating for a moment, Jim took the metal tube and scratched the paper a few times. The writing is very smooth. After writing many letters in a row with the metal tube, Jim looked surprised. The most criticized thing about fountain pens is that the paper is easily scratched and the pen tip is also very fragile. It needs to be filled with ink almost every day, and these are exactly the strengths of ballpoint pens. Of course, today's ballpoint pens still need to be filled with ink, and the earliest ballpoint pens in history still had oil leakage problems, but these problems have been solved. Did you really understand this? Jim felt that he really needed to get to know the Chinese man in front of him again. What do you think? I'm going to register a patent soon, and all my living expenses will depend on this pen. Yan Guang took the ballpoint pen back from Jim's hand and clenched his fist in a decisive gesture. It's really useful. Now you don't have to worry about living expenses anymore. Jim naturally knew why Yan Guang was worried these days, so he was sincerely happy for him. Yeah, I've been very worried these days. Thinking that a few days ago he had thought about going to Chinatown to beg, Yan Guang sighed deeply. In fact, in order to get this ballpoint pen, he didn't have much money in his wallet. If he couldn't sell the ballpoint pen as soon as possible, he would go to Chinatown to beg this week. After leaving the hotel, Yan Guang spent 2 hours registering a patent for the ballpoint pen. Of course, the registered name was ballpoint pen. After all, Yan Guang's poor brain could not think of any other name. Yan Guang then spent several hours searching around the city to find out how many companies producing stationery there were in San Francisco and which ones were the strongest. As long as the ballpoint pen patent is sold, Yan Guang can make the next step. Chapter 2 Ballpoint Pen. Thinking back to the feeling of writing on paper with this ballpoint pen just now, Roger really couldn't imagine that this could be invented by a Chinese. Mr. Roger, what do you think? Yan Guang, who was sitting opposite, asked nervously. Now he is really strapped for money, and almost all his money has been invested in ballpoint pens. If he can't sell it as soon as possible, he may really have to live on the street. Of course, the experienced Roger couldn't miss the expression on Yan Guang's face. As a businessman, he should have taken this opportunity to lower the price, but think about the company that has been weighing on him for 10 years and the group of people below who are also eyeing. Forget it. Even if we don't want such a good thing, I'm afraid others will rush for it. Shaking his head, Roger finally gave up the idea of keeping it down. It is indeed a good thing. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I really couldn't imagine that a Chinese would understand it. I didn't understand this in the first place. Yan Guang curled his lips inwardly. Then how much are you prepared to pay for it? Before coming here, he had already inquired about several companies that produce stationery in San Francisco, and this time he came specifically for this one that had always been the second best. Now it seems that the effect is quite good. The second child in the family has obviously not given up the idea of becoming the boss. Putting aside the price, I still want to ask about the conditions you just proposed. Rubbing his head, Roger looked at the yellow man in front of him seriously. You want to retain the rights to produce this pen in China, right? Of course. Yan Guang nodded. When I return to China to open a factory in the future, I don't want to have to pay fees for something I invented. Well, let's do that. I'm willing to pay $50,000 to buy your patent, and the conditions are, as you said, allowing you to retain the rights to produce in China. How about that? Roger said and smiled. I believe you also knew about our company before coming here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the first to find us. 50,000 US dollars? Yan Guang did some calculations in his mind. At this time, 50,000 US dollars was roughly equivalent to 150,000 to 60,000 silver dollars, and it might even be a little more. Moreover, during this period, 1 silver dollar could buy 30 kilograms of rice or 8 kilograms of pork, which was equivalent to 6 or 70 yuan in 2007. So 50,000 US dollars was indeed not a small amount. Yan Guang understood that the price offered by the middle-aged man in front of him was very reasonable, especially because they were eager to become the number one in San Francisco. The price might even be higher than what other companies offered, so he said straightforwardly without bargaining, "Then it's a deal." After hearing Yan Guang's agreement, Roger directly drafted a contract, signed his name, and handed it to Yan Guang. Yan Guang checked it carefully and signed his name after finding that there was no trap for him. After waiting for about 30 minutes, Roger's mail secretary withdrew $50,000 in cash from the bank. Yan Guang shook hands with Roger and left the company called Heint. "Boss, is this pen really worth $50,000? The mail secretary asked curiously after taking a look at the very simple ballpoint pen in Roger's hand. "Of course. Will I still make a loss-making business?" After putting the contract in the safe, Roger laughed and cursed. According to Real History, 10,000 ballpoint pens were sold for the first time after they were launched, and the price was $10 each. Thinking about the $50,000 in the suitcase and thinking about how I almost ended up sleeping on the street some time ago, destiny is really elusive. Let's go have a meal first, and then look for a house. Although the hotel room is good, it is too small. I will have to make a lot of things in the next time. If I accidentally blow up the hotel? Didi. Just as Yan Guang was thinking about something, a harsh horn sound suddenly came from nearby. Although he had traveled to this world for some time, the instinctive reaction he had cultivated in his previous life still made him subconsciously step aside. Is this the earliest car? The curiosity about the car overshadowed the anger of almost being hit, but soon Yan Guang became furious. Damn yellow-skinned monkey, don't you know how to read the road? Although Yan Guang's height of over 1.8 meters seemed to be much taller than his own, the white man who seemed to be the driver still cursed loudly and then walked away without waiting for Yan Guang to react. Holy shit! Yan Guang, who didn't react until the car was far away, gave the driver a middle finger. This was the first time he encountered a racist, but he didn't pay much attention. After all, every country has scum, and Yan Guang just thought he was unlucky to encounter one. But when Yan Guang walked into a nice-looking restaurant to eat and was kicked out by the waiter because of customer protests, he realized that a yellow man like himself was really an anomaly in the United States. It was only then that Yan Guang noticed that the people on the street did have something strange in their eyes when they saw him, but he had never noticed it in the past. Racial discrimination. Yan Guang smiled bitterly. Speaking of it, during this period, schools in some states in the United States did not even allow black people to go to school, right? To be precise, schools in all states did not allow them. Speaking of which, Yan Guang would also like to thank the owner of his body. He had already cut off his braid before coming to the United States. Now his hair is not too short. Otherwise, the people around him would probably have more than just strange expressions. Although he smiled bitterly, Yan Guang quickly found a house for rent. Although the location was a little remote, it had a lot of space, and the price was reasonable. Then Yan Guang returned to the hotel, checked out his original room, and then went to the store to buy some bread. After returning to the house, he settled into a new home. In the next few months, Yan Guang produced more than 100 things, almost one a day. Although they were all gadgets, Yan Guang still got the title of Ming Wang. Even people in New York on the other side of the United States knew that there was a Chinese Ming Wang named Yan Guang in San Francisco. Many local Chinese groups had invited Yan Guang, which made Yan Guang create his last Ming in the United States, Wei Su, in the 5th month after coming to this world. By this time, Yan Guang's net worth had exceeded 900,000 US dollars, equivalent to more than 2 million and nearly 3 million silver dollars. Although he could not compare with those giants, he was still considered a rich man in San Francisco. While many people in San Francisco, especially the Chinese in San Francisco, were still waiting for Yan Guang to continue to come up with new inventions to see if he could surpass Edison, they did not know that Yan Guang, a Chinese who had almost set a record of one invention a day, had already emptied his head of everything. It was at this time that Yan Guang saw a newspaper about rubber. Chapter 3 London. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, with the rapid development of the automobile industry, the demand for rubber increased sharply. At the same time, rubber has also become an emerging material for many industrial products. Cars, tricycles, and rickshaws have all been replaced with rubber tires. Shanghainese wear a pair of rubber shoes over cloth shoes or leather shoes called galoshes and then put on rubber raincoats so they can go out as usual even in heavy rain. In addition to these, there are countless other rubber products, and rubber has therefore become a popular product. Of course, the demise of the Qing dynasty can also be said to have a certain relationship with rubber. In 1908, because there was no artificial rubber at that time, all the rubber used by people was produced naturally. Considering the constraints of growth cycle, climate, soil, and other factors, the scale of rubber production could not be expanded in the short term, which also destined the price of rubber to continue to rise for a period of time. The rubber stocks that indirectly led to the early demise of the Qing dynasty began in 1908. At this time, it can be said that the price of rubber in the London market increased exponentially. This situation also caused more people to start investing in rubber speculation. It was at this time that foreign rubber companies began to set up companies in Nanyang, which was suitable for rubber production, and their headquarters were all in Shanghai, the financial center of the Far East, to facilitate financing here. These companies published advertisements in newspapers in Shanghai saying that buying rubber means buying the future. This led to a large number of foreigners and local Chinese in China buying rubber stocks. Coupled with the bid-up of stock prices by some established companies, it was normal for the stock price to increase more than 10 times at that time, and even reach the level of 27 to 8 times at the highest point. Of course, when the bonfire burns out, it will only leave ashes on the ground. When the London stock market plummeted, the Huangpu River at that time was as full of floating corpses as the Ganges. At this time, due to the ignorance of the Qing government, the Shanghai Road Rescue Operation failed, which also caused the rubber stock craze in the late Qing dynasty. At that time, the entire country lost tens of millions of silver, which led to the Qing government having to nationalize the railway and then mortgage it out. This also triggered the road protection movement in Sichuan. In order to suppress the road protection movement in Sichuan, the new army from Hubei was transferred to Sichuan to suppress it, which led to the emptiness of Wuchang, which also triggered the Wuchang Uprising and plunged the entire South China into an uprising frenzy. Stock trend, road protection movement, Wuchang Uprising, revolution of 1911. It can be said that if there was no stock trend, the Qing dynasty could have continued for at least a few years. Here we have to thank Comrade Chen Bongrui, the minister of the branch, and his student, Comrade Cheng Dequan, who was the governor of Jiangsu at the time. If Chen Bongrui had not had a grudge against the then Shanghai Daodai Cainai Huang, he and his student Cheng Dequan jointly participated in the impeachment of Cainai Huang, causing Cainai Huang's almost successful rescue operation to fail. I am afraid we would have to wait a few more years for news of the success of the revolution. Of course, those who jumped into rivers and buildings would also like to thank Chen Bongrui's 18 generations of ancestors. Now, Yan Guang wants to go to London to increase his wealth tenfold or eightfold. Then he returned to China with a huge amount of wealth and contributed to Comrade Chen Bongrui's cause of resisting the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty. It is indeed a foggy city. Standing at the passenger ship, looking at the foggy city in the distance, when the passenger ship was about to come into contact with the fog, Yan Guang took out a mask from his arms and put it on his face, which surprised several passengers on the side who were about to take a deep breath.